And Madam Speaker, this is unprecedented, and it is not, and I agree with you, it's not a practice that we offer any comfort to. The leader of the opposition has made the point, and the member may, um, truncate at this point to allow for the printing of the soft copy which he has sent so that the distribution can take place. And I will have a recommittal of statement by ministers in order for her to make the full presentation, if it so pleases you, Madam Speaker.
Um, the soft copy
Minister, were you able to forward a soft copy to the Parliament?
just, yes, Madam Speaker, let me just to indicate that it was not my intention to commence the statement without making a copy available to both sides. It was not my intention. And in fact, I had asked that the item be recommitted to enable the transition of the statement to the opposition ahead of my commencing. Yes. So, Madam Speaker, I crave
Minister,
your leave. I will pause and ensure that the
would you
statement...
give us an idea of how much longer your presentation is?
About 10 minutes or less.
All right.
But, Madam
So,
Speaker, I will pause and allow the statement to be
House
transmitted.
Leader has indicated that he would prefer to have a recommittal.
Yes.
And we would be happy to
Yes. That is exactly what I had
operate
asked.
in good order in keeping with
It's not
that
out of
directive.
order.
Thanks, Minister. Announcements?
Laid on the table of the House are the following: annual reports of the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office for the financial year 2016-2017, annual reports of Jamaica Vacations Limited for the financial year.
Gift to keep your child season? Give them the gift of Smiles ME is a fun, tablet-based learning program designed for kids in grades 1 through 5. Your child
Resource Management and Governance of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Under the Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Act of 2017, the Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures, Extension of Period of Operation Number 2, Orders 2024 and their respective resolutions in respect of 1. The Greenwich Town Zone, 2. The Parade Gardens Zone, 3. The Savannah Lamar Zone, 4. The Augustown Zone, 5. The Mount Salem Community and Environs in the Parish of St. James Zone, 6. The Denham Town Community Zone, and 7. The Norwood Community in the Parish of St. James Zone. Finally, Ministry Papers numbered 83 to 89 of 2024, entitled The Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures, Social Intervention Updates for June 26, 2024 to November 28, 2024, dated November 28, 2024, in respect of 1. The Greenwich Town Zone, 2. The Parade Garden Zone, 3. The Savannah Lamar Community Zone, 4. The Augustown Community Zone, 5. The Mount Salem Community Zone, 6. The Denham Town Community Zone, and 7. The Norwood Community Zone, respectively. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Bills brought from the Senate. Clerk.
The following is a message from the President of the Senate to the Honorable House of Representatives. I have the honor to advise the Honorable House of Representatives that on the 29th day of November 2024, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Maintenance Act and to Provide for Connected Matters was passed in the Senate with one amendment. The Honorable Thomas Tavares Finson, President of the Senate. And the amendment is as follows. In the words of enactment, delete the words "the King's Most Excellent Majesty" and substitute, therefore, the words "the Parliament of Jamaica."
Ask for your consent that the Senate amendment to a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Maintenance Act and to Provide for Connected Matters be now considered and approved.
Consent given. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I now ask that the Senate amendment to a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Maintenance Act and to Provide for Connected Matters be approved.
Thanks, Minister. The question is that the Senate amendment to a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Maintenance Act and to Provide for Connected Matters be approved. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Minister, turn your mic off, please. I wanted to say something. Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally. Member Warmington, the member from Southwest St. Catherine. Let me just turn on your mic to hear under what section you have taken to your feet.
Madam Speaker, as relates to private members' motion and Standing Order 23, on October 29th, when I laid those motions, I asked the House to observe Standing Order 22 and 23. I'm asking, Madam Speaker, that we observe 23, if it can be today as early as possible, particularly as it relates to item 30, 31, 32, and 34. Those in particular, Madam Speaker. It says, as it relates to private members' motion, it shall not be taken not less than 6 days after it is published, and not more than 21 days after it's published. These were published on October 29th. And I ask and beg the indulgence of the House that we do deal with these as expeditiously as possible, as is listed in item Standing Order 23, particularly, as I said before, 30, 31, 32, and 34.
Member from St. Catherine Southwest, thank you very much for your intervention. So noted. We will continue with the order of business for today. Minister of National Security, Deputy Prime Minister.
Next meeting of the House, I will move that the Honorable House of Representatives approve the following resolutions under the Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Act 2017. The Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures, the Mount Salem Community and Environment in the Parish of St. James, the Savlamar Zone, the Denham Town Community Zone in the Parish of Kingston in the corporate area, the North Community in the Parish of St. James, the August Town Zone, the Parish of St. Andrew, the Parade Garden Zone Extension of Operation in the corporate area, the Greenwich Town Zone Extension of Period of Operation number 2, Order 2024 Resolution, which were all laid on the table of the House of Representatives on the 3rd day of December 2024. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take these motions. Thank you, Madam.
Public business. Or I don't think we have anything more under there. Questions, answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to the sitting of the House, motions for leave to introduce bills, presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. House Leader, I'm going to allow the member who sits in the seat as leader of opposition business to speak, and then you will stand for public business. I, on my agenda, have no items at the listing as I call them.
Yes, but Madam Speaker, there are some outstanding questions. And while we acknowledge the birthday of the leader of government business, I still want to ask him, what is the timetable for the answering of those questions?
Madam Speaker, I believe that there is a question that is in the name of the leader of the opposition that was dealt with, and there's one in your name, and there, right, and there's also one, I think. So there are 3 questions, and those questions will be answered, and I can assure you that they will be done before this session is over.
Thank you very much, House Leader. I must add to House Leader's statement. We have actually been making a concerted effort to have questions and answers to questions being answered. And I must say the record of the Parliament has significantly improved. We will continue to push from an administrative standpoint, ministers, to have questions answered as soon as is possible and in keeping with the standing orders. Thank you very much. Public business.
Madam Speaker, on the matter of public business, the Minister of National Security will take the measures relating to Zozo, and then we will proceed to the continuation of the state of the constituency debate. I will then move the motion for the continuation of it after the Minister of Finance has taken the Zozo measures.
Minister of National Security or Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When we first introduced the law reform zones of special operations, it was to provide a structural 3-phase, clear, hold, and build approach to tackling the root cause of crime. This strategy has proven to be so effective in creating safer space for citizens to live, work, and raise their families in specific areas designated as zones of special operation. Within the zones, we have invested heavily in infrastructure rehabilitation, including water systems, sewage, solid waste management, electrification, zinc fence removal, and school rehabilitation as part of the infrastructure development. Enterprise development have providing business development training, equipment and supplies, and assistance with business registration, and in fact, entrepreneurial grants across a number of these areas. Construction and rehabilitation of major roadways, parks, and community sports facilities has been part of some of the areas. We are still in the whole phase for a number of the zones. We look forward to expanding the build as well as expand the zones in the coming financial year. Critically, Madam Speaker, is the investment we have made in the human development of the people who reside within these zones. Birth certificates, summer camps, psychosocial counseling, academic enrichment initiatives, feature prominently among the suite of benefits that we are providing. Madam Speaker, the work that is being undertaken within the zones reminds us that crime is not just a law enforcement issue. It's deeply rooted in socioeconomic disparities, lack of opportunity, and community decline. It's with this in mind, Madam Speaker, that this administration has remained diligent, investing in the work within the zones and providing opportunities for improvement, both of their physical space as well as their human capacity development, Madam Speaker. The zones of special operations are a transformative tool for peace, stability, and development in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, the government has made significant progress in the 7 zones over the past 6 months. I wish to continue these efforts. Consistent with the requirements under the law reform zones of special operation, Special Security and Community Development Measures Amendment Act, we are seeking support for the extension of all 7 zones currently declared as zones of special operation in the communities of Mount Salem, Denham Town, August Town, Greenwich Town, Norwood, Parade Gardens, and Savile Lamar. Acting on the advice of the National Security Council and in accordance with the law reform zones of special operation, Special Security and Community Development Measures Amendment Act, and in accordance with the Section 5 of the Act, which guides the Prime Minister in Council after consultation with the Joint Command, may by order subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives extend the period referred to in Section 4.3, the Mount Salem, Denham Town, August Town, Greenwich Town, Norwood, Parade Gardens, and Savile Lamar zones of special operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures to be extended for a further period of 180 days, which will expire on the 23rd of June, 2025. Madam Speaker, the zones of special operations is more than just a security initiative. They are a blueprint for rebuilding our communities and a testament to our commitment to a brighter and more prosperous future for all Jamaicans, in particular those who are exposed in these critical areas. Madam Speaker, I now seek the affirmation of my colleagues in the House for the extension of the 7 zones mentioned.
Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have from time to time consistently supported the motions to extend the duration of these zones of special operations. There are 2 things I would just want to say this afternoon. First of all, in the case of, I think, Denham Town and Mount Salem, these have been in place now for 7 years or around that period of time. You know, a long time. And I really wondered, what is the strategy for these 2 communities to exit being in these zones? Or is it unknown as to how long they will remain in zones of special operations? I don't think when we first learned of the decision to utilize this particular mechanism, it was envisaged that communities would be permanently within a zone of special operations, which by its very name suggests a status which is not the normal status for a community. And indeed, the legal regime of a ZOZO is tailored to afford the security forces enhanced powers around maintaining control and peace and stability in those communities, which necessitates some amount of adjustment to the freedoms of the residents. So I'd like the minister to give us an indication of what would be the timeline or the criteria that would be considered as resulting in a decision to allow communities to exit this status of being zones of special operations. The second point I wish to make was those things which he mentioned about enhancing those communities, birth certificates, field trips, you know, other psychosocial interventions, infrastructure improvements around things like zinc fences and so on. These are all welcome and good things. The only thing I would say is that there are many, many communities that need that type of intervention, just as much as the 7 that are here. I mean, indeed, I can tell you that in my own constituency, we are very close to the Denham Town zone. And the social conditions that exist in Denham Town are not clearly distinguishable from those that exist in Trenchtown or Craigtown or Jonestown or Rosetown. Yet Denham Town has had 7 years of special attention from the social investment aspect of it, while the surrounding communities, all they really get is this CDF expenditure and any other additional expenditure that is generalized across members of parliament. So, you know, I think that the criteria or the cause or the driving factors that have necessitated that type of special intervention ought to be more generalized across all communities that need that type of intervention, so that there isn't this prioritization or even some would say discrimination in favor of some and not others when all have that need. So those are the 2 points I wish to make. I'd like to hear the minister's response, in particular on the first of them, and an indication as to what the strategy really is in relation to these zones, when we can expect communities to transition out of being in these zones. And, you know, at one time, I think he had indicated that there were plans to have many other zones rather than just limiting to 7. We haven't heard anything more on that. So what your current thinking is on that would also be of interest to us, Minister. Thank you. But we support the motion. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the minister comes to answer the question posed by the Leader of Opposition, I just wish for him to add as well the fact that in the discussions that have gone on from time to time, the point has been made that even as we recognize the constraints, the financial constraints in replicating zones of special operation, that there be specific other things that can be undertaken in constituencies that are, by zone recognition and admission, are not dissimilar from some of the conditions that are present in those zones, those communities with zones of special operation that cause that to be triggered in the first place. So more particularly, the PIOJ had identified 100 other communities. And I'd like to know, as the minister come to answer, whether some of those other 100 communities so identified for socioeconomic conditions are being considered, and where in that process are those communities. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank the colleagues on the opposition for their continued support on the program. To deal with the questions raised, one, that Denham Town and Mount Salem has been in for some time, the very beginning. We have been examining to begin to de-escalate the Mount Salem community. In fact, I don't want to say it's the last time, that's a strong word to use, but we're looking really at the end of that and to pivot into another area. Denham Town has had some challenges, and I completely agree with the ministers, with the member from South St. Andrew observation. There are several communities around Western Kingston area that have similar social, economic challenges. And some lessons are being learned in the Denham Town. The program in terms of clear, hold, and build has not run as smoothly as we have cleared to some extent, and the challenge in the level of violence investigation has significantly declined, even extending into the members' constituency. Holding has been going with some challenges, but holding. What is happening is that the build operation has not been going as smoothly. And there's some blocks which we are reviewing how we proceed with these activities, and certainly would like to extend them into other areas we close out in that area. It was always designed to expand them into other areas. As the member hinted from Western St. Andrew, the communities, they are identified by fairly clear empirical objectives, just over 100 what we call vulnerable communities across the island, and in particular in the southeastern belt, St. Catherine and the corporate area, and into the western belt of St. James and Westmoreland. The idea was to reach these communities. The zones were in fact designed for those who have a high level of violence, and it would appear to be a good model to work with in those areas with high level of violence. What the member is indicating, some of the activities can be introduced and should be introduced. I think we are looking at the budget, and that's really what it is, because that's the objective, to see that those that have significant level of social challenges have to be expanded, the programs to be expanded. There's a program that preceded that, which we call Inner City Basic Services Program, which could easily, which the non-security aspect of it was replicating that program. And we are now looking at how we can reach in some communities beyond that. We have a limited program, which is coming through the schools. There's the G2G, which is government to government, United States USAID, and one emerging from the UK, which we are looking at focusing on schools in challenged communities. In not to confine the activity to the school, but to use the school as a gateway into the community. Where we find the individuals by the case management, we can then expand backwards into the family and begin to find what those challenges are. And hopefully also integrate that with other community activity. But the focus for those two programs limited to the families that are challenged, because we end up with a single family in a very depressed condition. We can heal that, we can start the process even before we get to the infrastructure, which is critical and has to be introduced. And so we look forward to that. I'm unable to give you a fixed timeline, but with the challenge we have in the area of security and the continued persistent high violence in a number of these areas, we have to find the money. In fact, on my last discussion with the Minister of Finance, preceding Minister of Finance, and I know the President Minister has similar feelings, he said that some money that we cannot afford not to find. So I'm looking forward to the new budget to look at how we can expand it. The school program should reach one of your schools, although it's not part of the Zozo area. And we're looking at some schools in the other areas in the corporate area. But the zones are a crucial part of our attempt to have intervention in these vulnerable communities. We have to go for determined, united, and ensuring that every Jamaican is up to thrive in a safe and supportive environment. There's a recent comment, Mr. Speaker, I realize I've changed that the government has done pretty much everything in terms of policy to improve the security ecosystem by providing infrastructure, additional tools, and continue to invest. But there's one aspect which they're unhappy with, the bipartisanship. I'd like to say today, the zones of special operation is a role model in bipartisanship. And I think, in my view, this is the way bipartisanship should operate in all areas of government. I'm not dismissing in any way or diminishing the community civic institutions. They have a role to play, and let me emphasize that, an important role in democracy. But the ultimate place for full national activity and participation in the House of Parliament, where every sitting member represents the country as a whole, as opposed to a sectoral group. And I think the zones of special operation provides a good model, and we look forward to can extend that in other areas despite of the upcoming events of this year. We can work together on national issues for common purpose. Madam Speaker, as we approach the end of the year, 2024, I would like to thank all stakeholders who are involved in the social transformation efforts that are taking place within our vulnerable communities. Let us continue to press forward with purpose and drive towards building a safer and more secure Jamaica. May I seek the House's approval by affirmation of the continuation of the 7 zones mentioned in the resolution.
The question is that the resolution, notice of which a minister gave earlier, be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, given that you have assumed a new role this time, and you were a very important part of the continuation of the State of Constituency debate, I now would move that there be a suspension of the standing orders to allow for a recommittal of the item statement by ministers, so as to allow the Minister of Legal Affairs to make her presentation to its completion. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The request is that a recommittal be taken. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Madam Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I paused, I was speaking to the context in which this important constitutional reform work is happening. I indicated that Section 49 of the Constitution prescribes the manner in which the Constitution is to be altered.
Madam, just a minute, please. The extension to grant you the permission notes. The request is on the floor for the extension.
Was done.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. You may continue, madam.
It's a lot I'm learning today about perseverance. I was reminding the Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, that a bill for an act of parliament seeking to alter the provisions of the Constitution that we're seeking to must be tabled in the House of Representatives. A period of 3 months must elapse between the introduction of the bill in the House and the commencement of the first debate on the whole text of the bill in the House. A further 3 months must elapse between the conclusion of the debate and the passing of the bill in the House. I reminded that the bill must be passed by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all the members of the House. And thereafter, it must be submitted to the electors qualified to vote for the election of members of the House of Representatives.
At Harbor Freight, we're committed to keeping our quality high and our prices low. How do we do it? Unlike our competitors, we've managed to cut out the middleman. Our expert engineers work directly with top.
If both houses have passed the bill. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I repeat that based on the prescribed constitutional timelines for this type of bill, the work will not be complete within the life of the current Parliament. The referendum to achieve the approval of the electorate cannot be held before the dissolution of this Parliament, but in keeping with Section 49, the bill can be passed in 2 successive sessions of the House of Representatives, whether of the same Parliament or not. It is my hope that the bill seeking to give effect to the changes being pursued can be tabled, debated, and passed in the life of the current Parliament, and that the referendum be held during the next Parliament. Madam Speaker, I'm under no illusion as to the hurdles that will have to be crossed. We only have an outer life for the life of the Parliament, and so elections, the Parliament can be dissolved sooner, but if it is not dissolved sooner, it will require cooperation between the opposition and the government on this matter. Although the Constitution provides that where the bill is rejected by the Senate, either because the requisite vote was not received, or it was not dealt with within a month after it was sent there, and that the bill can be sent back to the House of Representatives for further deliberation. Madam Speaker, for that part to be achieved, it would take us into the next Parliament. And so I'm happy that the leader of the parliamentary opposition is still in the House, and the member of the parliamentary opposition from the House who sits on the Constitutional Reform Committee is also here. Through you, Madam Speaker, I would say to the leader of the parliamentary opposition that I don't believe member was able to provide an update to you on where we are because of absence from the last set of meetings. I did, however, communicate to the member the intention to proceed with the work to have the bill tabled in Parliament. It is my hope that dialogue will take place between the two sides, because I know that there is no disagreement on the goals being pursued. In order to achieve the other goals, the proposed alteration to Section 49 will make that work much easier. If we give up now, it would be a betrayal of everything we have worked for and a betrayal of what we hope to achieve. We must persevere. And as I think about the need for perseverance, I recall someone saying persevering is like tending seeds. You do not see the results right away, but if you keep tending the seeds, keep nurturing, keep watering, eventually you will have a garden full of abundance. So if we keep at it, eventually we will achieve all the reform goals that we desire to achieve. But we can only get to there if we keep at it and if we are prepared to take one. Making progress on the goals for independent Jamaica has been slow on many legs of the journey. It has not been a journey of quick wins on fundamental matters. However, we have seen positive difference where there has been sustained effort and collaboration between the two sides of the Parliament. And we need look no further than the progress we have made on the economic front. So, at this juncture, it cannot be about how we feel because of where we are in the life of the Parliament. There is still enough time to get it done. And if we give up now, it will be a betrayal of what we hope to achieve and the goals that we have set as a nation. Too often we convince ourselves that in order to achieve greatness, we must perform grand, extraordinary things. We must do it all at once. And as someone has said, we trick ourselves into believing that momental leaps are the only way to move forward. And that if we do not make a huge splash, then what we are doing doesn't matter. But this mentality is devastating, and even more devastating in an approach to constitutional reform. If we give up now, it will be a betrayal. It would be like standing at the base of a mountain, looking up at the peak and feeling paralyzed by the sheer size of it. The enormity of the task ahead makes it feel impossible. And so we hesitate and we wait and we make excuses and we tell ourselves why it can't be happen, why it cannot happen. But we can't wish away the context. We shouldn't allow fear and doubt to grip our hearts, because in our minds we have already failed at this stage of the parliament, or because we desire to achieve other goals which are not in this phase. Success is built in small daily actions. Persevering. It's not about the giant leaps. It's not about all or nothing. And there is no dispute about the goals that we're seeking to achieve to make real progress for an independent Jamaica. I urge that the two sides of the parliament find what it takes to make the incremental steps and have the bill passed so that it can be sent to the people for their approval. Madam Speaker, I close by just repeating that the proposed alteration to Section 49 will make it far less difficult to achieve the other reform goals that must come. But we cannot and should not give up now. So I am very pleased to report progress on this phase of the work to reform the Constitution of Jamaica, and to say to the people of Jamaica that they stand to win with a people-centered government. They stand to win. I look forward to tabling the bill soonest. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank the Minister for her presentation. I don't intend to say very much today, other than to point out that when the draft report of the Constitutional Reform Committee was shared with me, I put in writing my concerns with aspects of what was being proposed. I got a response to those concerns, making certain arguments, putting certain points forward, and I responded to that as well in writing, in detail. There are a number of issues which are unresolved arising out of that exchange of correspondence. And these are important matters that will affect whether or not the opposition is able or willing to support the bills that are being put forward. I don't know what the content of the bills is. And obviously, until I see it, and until we have an opportunity to see it, or see them, because it's two, I understand, we can't commit ourselves one way or the other. I note that Section 49 is to be amended. Section 49 provides the guardrails in the Constitution. It is the provision that sets out how the Constitution is amended. It sets out different procedures for amending different aspects of the Constitution, depending really on how fundamental those issues are. So there are some amendments to the Constitution that can be done by simple majority in each House. There are others that require a 2/3 majority of the members in each House. And in the Senate, as is well known, the governing side does not have 2/3. So amendments which require a 2/3 majority can't pass without the opposition being on board. And then there's a third category which require not only that the legislation be passed by that majority, but also that it be approved subsequently by the vote of the people, what's referred to as a referendum. Originally, my understanding was that what was being proposed in the first phase of the reform process was to get over those things that would require amendment by referendum. Therefore, the subsequent reforms would be things that don't require a referendum. Now I'm hearing that Section 49 is to be amended to make it that much easier to deal with those reforms that don't require a referendum. I'm not sure why it's considered necessary to do that, given that the guardrails applicable to those amendments which don't require a referendum are either a 2/3 majority of each house separately voting on it, or if it's something relatively unimportant or relatively uncontroversial, which is not subject to any form of entrenchment, a simple majority which the government has the capacity to pass on its own. The Constitutional Reform Committee did not get into any discussion as to the structure of Section 49, which is a very complex provision and was no doubt the subject of a lot of consideration by the persons who originated the Constitution prior to independence. We have not been consulted on that matter, and I consider it necessary to see that. I think something of that nature ought to be shared and subject to some amount of consultation between the two major political parties before embarking on it, because it is likely to be something which is going to be scrutinized very carefully, given the importance of the guardrails in the Constitution. So while I understand the minister's anxiety and the desire to move forward as expeditiously as possible, I would ask her to bear in mind that this is a situation where one hand simply cannot clap. And without the support of this side, this process is going nowhere. And we have put on the table issues of real concern, and unless those are addressed, our support is not guaranteed. And I have not heard anything over it's probably more than 6 months. I can't even remember when the report was, I think, finalized around March, April. We're now in December. I've had no interaction with the government on this matter since I submitted my final letter in that fairly short period of correspondence when the report was being finalized. It doesn't augur well for consensus when we proceed like that. And I would suggest that they may want to take some time to engage the opposition on our concerns if there's a genuine hope of moving forward to passing this legislation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Opposition Leader. Minister.
Madam Speaker, just to assure the Leader of the Opposition that there is no intention or desire to not have meaningful exchange. I think the absence of the opposition members on the committee has prevented the kind of update that we hope would have been provided on an ongoing basis. Just to say, Madam Speaker, when the CRC was designed, it was designed taking into account the need for bipartisan support as well as the people's approval. And that is why it is structured with membership from government and the opposition, Senate and House, and the public. Madam Speaker, the committee, working in the committee has been extremely frustrating at times because on many occasions, members expressed the view that it was clear that efforts were being made to derail the work and preventing real progress from being made. If the mechanism places the opposition at the table, where every issue is being discussed with candor, openness, and detail, where no view is shut down, where we have deliberated and never disagreed disrespectfully. You know, at some stage, the responsibility for the lack of update has to be owned. because the mechanism was there. I want to thank the leader of the opposition for the comments he sent. They were considered, the responses came. Some of his suggestions were taken on board and would be reflected in the updated recommendation. I think there are two issues that I understand are of concern: the issue of impeachment and the issue of the final court, coming down to it. All right, the issue of the mechanism for appointing the president has been reviewed, and we took into account suggestion made by former Prime Ministers Pattison and Golding, as well as other comments. And that revised mechanism takes into account the fact that we are not moving to an executive presidential system. There is a two-stage process of nomination and confirmation, and you will see what has been put forward from the recommendation. We have had proposals for an expansion in the body for approval. That there was no consensus on that, but we have noted it and will send it forward. I think the opportunity will be provided for further deliberation at the Joint Select Committee, but you will not have to wait until then because you will see the bill long before. Just to go to the issue of the proposed amendment to Section 49. Section 49 is a deeply entrenched section and therefore can only be changed with the approval of the people and the holding of a referendum. There is no intention to weaken the guardrails, absolutely none. In fact, the proposed amendment strengthened the guardrail because the proposal includes tabling of a bill to amend the Constitution in the House of Representatives in respect of the ordinary provisions, a delay period of 14 days between the tabling and the commencement on the debate, and another 14 days between the conclusion of the debate and the passing. That is improvement. Not weakening. There is no proposal to change the vote that is required in respect of any category of provision. So there is no fear that a 2/3 majority will be changed in any way. There is proposal in respect of efficient use of the parliamentary time and also to make correction of cross-references easier. It really shouldn't require going to a referendum to alter a cross-reference or to delete a section of the Constitution that has been repealed. And the proposal is to make it easier to add provisions to the entrenched sections, not to take away.
Minister, opposition is asking to ask an additional question.
Yes.
This statement by Minister, I didn't expect to become a debate. And I know you would ask me to allow it. However, there are 3 members of parliament seated here with persons who have visited the parliament and have been waiting for an extended period to hear their State of the Constituency debate. So I'm going to ask both sides to very quickly wrap up. Leader of opposition business.
Madam Speaker, that's just a simple question. Would the minister agree that all previous substantial changes to the Constitution came about from consultation and approval from the opposition before tabling of the bill in Parliament? And would the minister not see that as a better course than, as you're proposing, to table a bill that we haven't seen before tabling? Is that really the wise course to take, Minister?
This is how I will answer. I am mindful of the constitutional arrangement, and it is and has always been the approach of the government to provide a mechanism for consultation and bipartisan work. But you would appreciate that you can't delegate the responsibility of government. You have to get on with the work. And so, the lack of update to the leader of the opposition has to be owned by the opposition members on the committee. But my short answer is I will always take the better approach. And you can be assured that the bill will be viewed. The next meeting of the CRC is set for tomorrow, and notice was given more than a week ago. So I hope that the members will be present and that the mechanism will allow for the information to be transmitted and then other steps be taken to have the cross-aisle conversation.
Thank you, Minister. Leader of Government Business, would you be so kind to stand and
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the continuation of the State of the Constituency debate be now ensued, and the speakers today will be the member from St. James Central and Deputy Speaker of the House, Mr. Hero Clark, and he'll be followed by the member from St. Andrew Western, Mr. Anthony Hilton, and the member from St. Elizabeth Northeast, Mr. Delroy Slowly, in that order. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, House Leader. Members in the House, today is House Leader's birthday. It is remiss of me.
Thanks for waiting. Now, how would you like your steak microwaved? Rare or well? Sangre.
A round of applause on the decks. You know what we do. We bang the decks very, very hard today. I can't hear you. Our House Leader continues to look extremely young. I won't ask how old are you now. And he continues to be very vibrant, energetic, and continues to rake in tourism dollars for the citizens of Jamaica. Happy birthday, House Leader. Our first speaker from St. James Central, Deputy Speaker, Mr. Hero Clark, MP.
Thank you very much, Madam.
Let's make Mr. Clark welcome.
The saying goes, when you're enjoying things, time flies. And so, Madam Speaker, today I will be very brief because I am enjoying the prosperity that is abound. Madam Speaker, it is a privilege to rise in this honorable House to contribute to the 2024 State of Constituency debate. God has been good to me. He has given me 54 years on this earth. Madam Speaker, sometimes coffee, sometimes tea, but all in all, I am blessed. Blessed enough to have a leader who believes in young people, one who understands the thinking of the less fortunate, the downtrodden, and the forgotten. This leader speaks of we and us, not me and I. Together, hand in hand, we are moving along the journey as one. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Hones, be blessed. Madam Speaker, any institution that is without a supportive team will fail. I will therefore use this opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of my family, especially my children, who continue to give their support and to give up their father to the service of this nation. I am very grateful to my immediate management committees who continue to work tirelessly. To the youth arm within my GeoBlock, I say thank you. To the one who continues to contribute financially and any other way to the constituency, a huge heartfelt thank you. Social media personnel who continues to keep the fire blazing, those abroad and at home. A very special thank you to my churches led by some of the most astute men of God. I salute you. Please continue to pray as the journey continues. To my supportive voters and every single worker, I salute you. St. James Central would not have been the same without you. Madam Speaker, it was a Herculean moment in 2010. 3 wise men who worked in the East but came from the West founded St. James Central on one of their journey. Dr. Honorable Horace Chang, Minister, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, and then Minister Clive Mullins. I respectfully thank you 3 for all the work you did and giving up a division each to the birth of the constituency of St. James Central. Madam Speaker, education. Madam Speaker, we believe heavily in education, and therefore we have invested heavily in this vehicle every year. For the budgeted year 24-25, we have invested over $8,500,000 through my CDF and sponsorship from well-wishers. For our back-to-school treat in August, over 3,000 children benefited from my constituency. Madam Speaker, because St. James Central is the oasis in the West, we continue to share with our neighboring constituency from Westmoreland and Hanover alike. They also receive backpacks, books, and other school supply because they will turn up at the treat and we are unable to turn them back. For students attending high schools, they benefit by receiving a minimum of 3 textbooks per student. Over 200 students benefited this year. Each year, Madam Speaker, I pay for 2 CXC subjects per applicant, depending on the need when assessed. This may change. This year have a different feeling, as adults were coming in just the same, asking for assistance to pay for their CSEC subjects. It tells us, Madam Speaker, that education is on the rise. No longer will these as adults satisfy themselves with minimum wage, and hence they are uplifting themselves and moving on with prosperity with the Jamaica Labour Party. Our tertiary students receive grants toward their tuition. To date, 230 students benefited from this initiative. I must extend a great appreciation to the government of Jamaica for an additional $3 million toward tertiary grants, which would have provided an opportunity for an extra 30 additional students, to which we could not have afforded. That's right. With some assistance from the Chase Fund, Madam Speaker, we got a much needed infant department to the Farm Primary School in Green Pond. The primary school in Salt Spring have been recently renovated through JSIF. This entity, through its visionary leadership, continued to transform Salt Spring from what it used to be to a place where we are now able to live in peace and comfort. Thanks to the thinking, the visionary thinking of our Minister of National Security, who understand what happens in the inner city. Madam Speaker, we still have work to do in this community. We have been conducting stakeholders meetings. We have been receiving help through the churches, the police, political representatives, agencies, and citizens alike, as we all believe in Salt Spring. Madam Speaker, 80 pieces of smart board have been acquired for this year, because last year, as you remember, I did make presentation that we had issued over 53 smart board. We have acquired another 80. Madam Speaker, this was not funded by the government coffers, but from the support within the diaspora. Through you, Madam Speaker, I am now serving notice to the Minister of Education and Youth, the Dr. Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, and the Minister of Finance, Honorable Favour Williams, that I will be seeking their support to offset the custom duties. Madam Speaker, Project STAR is a project. This is a joint initiative between PSOJ and the JCF. And from this initiative, we have 2 cohorts of job readiness training conducted. From this training, Madam Speaker, 35 trainees have been placed in employment. The first cohort of at-risk youth trained and are they are outfitted with goods and equipment for their business to start up. Madam Speaker, to come under the same project, Salt Spring One-Day Football League scheduled for Sunday, December 8th, 2024 at the Salt Spring Community Grounds. This event, Madam Speaker, is designed to foster unity and camaraderie through the love of football. It is an opportunity for our community to come together in a spirit of sportsmanship and mutual support, underscoring the importance of physical activity and teamwork. Such activities, Madam Speaker, have proven to be effective in fostering collaboration, promoting healthy lifestyle, and nurturing positive relationships within the community. Madam Speaker, to come, Salt Spring Senior Citizen Christmas Street on Wednesday, December 18, 2024, where we will be hosting the senior citizens and treating them just as they deserve. This event will celebrate and honor the individual contribution of our resident just the same. To come, Madam Speaker, the Community Development Transformational Plan, Project STAR, as a part of the Project STAR ongoing commitment to the development of Salt Spring. Upon our official entry into the community, Project STAR has been working with members of the community to work on a development of the community transforming action plan. Social welfare. Madam Speaker, birth certificates have been acquired for almost 40 residents and supporting provided for other civil documents. 40 residents were screened for training in micro-entrepreneurship at the Heart Level 2. The Office of the St. James Constituency, St. James Central Constituency, continue to assist members to acquire birth certificate and passport, Madam Speaker. As you understand, this constituency is from the inner city, and so many of these documents, well-needed documents, are not ready at hand for some, and so we take it on as part of our duty to assist them as best as possible. Madam Speaker, this year, my office paid for 20 mammograms and the Action Fund paid for the other 30. We continue to assist the elderly in purchasing their medication just the same. Infrastructure. Madam Speaker, my colleague, well-wishers, and may I dare say detractors, they don't just call me King of Road just because they want to give me a name. Madam Speaker, anyone who knows my era well will agree with me willingly or reluctantly that since being the victor in 2016, St. James Central have seen massive infrastructural transformation in the road network. Madam Speaker, roads have been made into carpet that have never seen Baba Green in 60 years. For this year, the following road for improvement are Rosite, most of the interior roads. Salt Spring, most of the interior roads are being fixed for the very first time. Madam Speaker, I will be the first to say all is not completed. There are many roads that we intend to fix. Roads such as Robert Reed Drive, Birch Hill, section of Flower Hill, road in Cornwall Court, Golden Heights, Higgins Road, Cornwall Gardens. Madam Speaker, in my last presentation, I reported that we are far advanced in the discussion with the Tory Easton Foundation to create a mini park on the lands adjacent to Jared Park. We would have received the no objection letter from the St. James Municipal Corporation to proceed. Today, Madam Speaker, I can proudly announce that the funding has been identified from the Ministry of Tourism under the Spruce Up Pandikana program managed by TPDCO and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation under the Urban Renewal Program. I am able to begin the construction of the multipurpose court. This represents the first phase of the project in the amount of $6,300,000. To come, the jogging trail, the futsal field, and park benches, and the generation of the beautification of the area. Madam Speaker, as we continue to empower our constituents, we saw the need to construct 4 new stalls for the food vendors on the Felicity Road. This again was funded through my allocation under the Spruce Up Pandikana for financial year 23-24. Madam Speaker, While we are doing mega projects simultaneously, we continue to support our small business owner. Our small business owners have also been assisted through grants from my CDF and the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. We, Madam Speaker, bear the task of making space for many of the national edifices within the West. We continue to construct state-of-the-art directional signs for the constituency. Those to come are Capitol Heights, Melbourne, and Cornwall Gardens. The Cornwall Regional Hospital is on the last leg to completion thanks to the Ministry of Health led by the astute Minister, Dr. Christopher Tufton. Thank you very much, sir. The Children and Adolescent Hospital is right there too, so it's not just one, it's two of them. Madam Speaker, Colonel Primary School had minimal damages which were corrected because due to the passing of Beryl. The Barracks Road Primary School, the roof had some damages, and these both were repaired as well. Madam Speaker, water continued to be a sore point for the constituency. Minister Matthew Samuda visited with us and toured all the existing facilities within the constituency that provides water. He saw the situation and have reaffirmed the needed help is on its way. I can now proudly report that whilst it is not where it's all, we have received a water project to the tune of more than $200 million that will see 6 inches water supply main, taking water from quarry pump to the tank at Megitop, and the existing 2-inch main will become the service line to the entire community of Salt Spring and its environs. Madam Speaker, while we are smiling, our hearts are heavy. Heavy, Madam Speaker, because of the number of criminal activity that continue to be perpetrated by just a few. This must stop. We must no longer accept this kind of behavior. Madam Speaker, the constituency of St. James Central said time come. Time come not for what the king's opposition is having a nightmare of, but time come for the senseless killing to stop. Madam Speaker, I dare say that your ascendance to the chair as Speaker of this honorable House has come at a time when fresh and astute thinking is welcome to the sitting of the lower house. I pray that the Almighty will continue to bless you with all that which He has blessed Ruth and Naomi with: an outspoken tongue, a humble heart, yet fearless attitude. To our Prime Minister, wrapping up.
House Leader.
The member's time have been expired. I beg to move that
1 minute
it be extended to allow him to complete his presentation.
The House, the question is, the member be allowed to complete his presentation. He appears to be on conclusion. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I would repeat where you were before. I like that part.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I will. Madam Speaker, may I dare say that your ascendance to the chair as Speaker of this honorable House has come at a time when fresh and astute thinking is welcome to the sitting of the lower house. I pray that the Almighty will continue to bless you with all that which He has blessed Ruth and Naomi with an outspoken tongue, a humble heart, yet fearless attitude. To our Prime Minister, as God had blessed young Saul, young Samuel, young David, and Solomon, I pray He continue to anoint you with the same. Madam Speaker, my leader Banya, in parents Banya, and as such, him not left ya. He is here to stay, and all 48 of us pledge to stay here. With that said, Madam Speaker, I thank you.
That was beautiful. Next, let's make welcome to his feet the member from St. Andrew Western.
Madam Speaker, the limited available time to speakers in this debate is incentive for me to recognize my councillors who are here, councillors Anderson, Clark, and Thomas, my able office team, Ms. Jennifer Edwards and Cassandra Campbell, my present constituency team, ever-present constituency team, and personal staff comprising personal assistant, security officer, and driver, specially invited guests who will be introduced to this house shortly. And of course, you, Madam Speaker, and to my colleagues on both sides. Madam Speaker, the political boundaries of Western St. Andrew were redrawn sometime in 2012 to include the communities of Plantation Heights, Belvedere, Happy Grove, Gutsman, Mary's Gully, Cedar Valley, and Cypress Hall. All in the Constituent Park Division, which retains its complements of previously identified communities. The other two communities of Waterhouse and Seaview Gardens remain as they were for the previous decades, Madam Speaker. The point, Madam Speaker, is being made for the benefit of colleagues in this honorable House, who have to be reminded from time to time that the needs of the constituents of Western St. Andrew are expanded to include communities which were formerly a part of West Rural St. Andrew, especially the farmers. As I have struggled to remind ministerial colleagues in this House of the legitimate needs of those farmers I now represent. I wish for ANSA to record their needs for proper farm roads, community roads, water, and farm support, as can be confirmed by RADA. Madam Speaker, while I'm on the subject of change geography, I must mention the particular challenges faced by the residents of the Plantation Heights community, whose lives have been greatly affected by the fact that their individual purchases of lots in the subdivision has not benefited from the amenities of properly paved roads, adequate water, lighting, and other facilities due to the failure of the developer or its successors in interest in the development to complete the development and hand over the subdivision to the local government authority for proper administration and maintenance. Madam Speaker, the issue arises as to the need for appropriate legislation to address this glaring problem as to what happens to purchasers in these failed subdivisions and their expectation and enjoyment of decent roads and public amenities. More can and must be done to fix this unacceptable situation in the real estate and construction sector, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my presentation to this honorable House today could not be complete without reference to the fact that the Duane Park community has been celebrating its 60th anniversary in fine style, and under the leadership of the Community Development Committee, the CDC. Yes, Madam Speaker, a vibrant organization is still functioning in the Duane Park community after several decades and many challenges in continuing the civic dialogue among various community members, groupings, and factions in its effort to unite the community and to maintain its central role as a hub of peace and stability in Western St. Andrew and in the corporate area more generally. The highlight of the year-long celebration, Madam Speaker, of activities was the Duane Park 60th Anniversary Award Dinner, again spearheaded by the CDC, itself in recognition of the many stalwarts who toiled in transforming the starter homes built by the Matalan into homes which sheltered the families and the families who forged the community. The reflection on this journey as a bedroom community included the period racked by political violence that almost tore the community apart. But for the intervention of the now disabled and discarded Peace Management Initiative, PMI, which greatly assisted in building bridges among factions and eventually succeeded in winning sustained peace, if not harmony, in the community. Madam Speaker, the Duane Park CDC and community stands as a beacon of hope for other challenged communities in the corporate area and throughout Jamaica. And I believe the chairman of the CDC is here with us today. And if he is, I'd ask him to just stand and be recognized for a job well done. Thank you for coming. Among the successes in Duane Park, Madam Speaker, are the stellar institutions of learning, including the heralded George Headley Primary School, Duane Park Primary School, which has been experiencing something of a regeneration lately, and the Edith Dalton James High School, which has found a new lease on life, Madam Speaker, and its true place in the education system and in the constituency of Western St. Andrew. Madam Speaker, the Edith Dalton James High School is not unlike many of the non-traditional high schools, which have struggled to find an identity and to chart a program of excellence from a seemingly indifferent education system that prioritizes the traditional high schools. That search for an identity ended recently, Madam Speaker, because ever since I proposed, and the former Minister of Education agreed to add to its curriculum programs in supply chain management and logistics, as well as commercial truck driving, Edith Dalton James High has found a purpose, Madam Speaker. I use this opportunity to announce to this Honorable House that the first cohort of students eligible to sit both the CAPE and CXC examinations in the subject will be registered this year. Madam Speaker, this is an achievement that should be recognized not only by the Duane Park community and Edith Dalton, but by this Parliament. I congratulate the staff at the school and at the ministry for their responsiveness in the challenge issued to them, and wish the group of pioneering students well in their exam early next year. Madam Speaker, Edith Dalton James High has found purpose and will never be the same again. I've already thanked the former Minister of Education for her support in the venture and will continue the effort with the new Minister of Education to quickly complete the process of removing the school from the shift system and the badge of mediocrity it imposes. I also thank the private firm, DEX, for its commitment to assist in enabling the students at Edith Dalton James High to acquire the skills plus a license to drive commercial vehicles used in the distributive trade locally and a part of transport logistics globally. Madam Speaker, in this 60th anniversary, it can come as no surprise that Duane Park has its many challenges as well. Chief among these are the physical infrastructure, beginning with roads, which are most visible and frequently felt by the motorists who have to be constantly replacing or repairing parts on their vehicles, or even the visually impaired trying to use the badly damaged sidewalks. And here I must recognize that today is the internationally recognized day of the celebration of disabled persons. Also, Madam Speaker, the aged underground sewage and water mains, as well as the collapsed drains, are a source of continuing concern and greatly increase the misery index of the community residents. Madam Speaker, I must make a special appeal for the Duane Park and Western St. Andrew community roads listed on the Spark program, for them to be given priority status, as these communities were the first to kickstart the consultations under the program and the first to complete their consultation. For this, Madam Speaker, participants in the consultations were promised publicly that they would be among the first to be benefited. The people and their communities are holding firm to this promise. Madam Speaker, as I leave Duane Park, I must remind the various ministers of economic growth and job creation on the outstanding matters of the pipeline project from Ferry to Red Pond, via Cypress Hall, and the Resource Training Center for the Brook Valley community, both of which are long overdue. Madam Speaker, let me address the matter of the community of New Haven. Though not as storied as the Duane Park community, or having the same formal development, the New Haven community has been much maligned and mischaracterized by persons ignorant of the antecedents and the proud history of land and home ownership in that community. Many of these original homeowners, Madam Speaker, fled their land many years ago as successive governments failed to control the silting of the Duane River as it floods communities in its path on the way to the Hunts Bay, via Riverton and 6 Mile communities. This has resulted in flooding of the New Haven community whenever it rains, as the undersized and poorly maintained system of drains cannot empty the runoff into the river, which overflows its back.
Good evening, everyone. We do apologize. We got to break away from the constituency debate in the Parliament where MP Hilton, Member Hilton, is giving his presentation about his constituency. The Mequitalk program has to break away from this due to circumstances beyond our control. We want to say thank you all for coming and thank you all for watching. And we do apologize for this to break away from this live feed from the House of Parliament. The Mequitalk program do apologize for this. Circumstances beyond our control. We have to go off air at the moment. Thank you all so much for coming on. God bless you. May God bless Jamaica land we love. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk. People.
Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents Yard and Broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth. Make we reason. Make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va. No upper echelon. Nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica. Make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength.